Good morning. Alright, today, since the big chat yesterday is that the Monday game will be becoming Mage, figured it was a good time for a bit of Mage 101. Now, for anyone watching who is not part of my gaming group, who's not already aware, the version of Mage that I am going to be running is the 20th anniversary rules. I don't think that will really come up much in what I'm going to talk about today, but it may in upcoming videos. So, the first thing I want to talk about today is, because it is Mage, a little bit about the Magick system. Because I think it's going to be the area that people are going to have the hardest time getting their head around. Now, most people are used to magic systems like D&D. You have spells have levels. If you can cast that level of spell and you know the spell, you can cast it. Mage throws that right out the window. Completely and totally gone. That is not how magic works. Magic is all about the intent of what you want to do. So, you have the ability to attempt to do anything you want, really. There are no spells to limit your ideas. If you want to pick up a glass and throw it across the room without moving your hands, then you can try to do that. If you want to drop a building on someone, you can try to do that. Now, within the system, there are constraints that define your power level. And the primary one of these comes down to the 9 spheres of magic. Now, what the spheres are is 9 skills, if you want to call them that, 9 stats that determine how good you are at working with different things. So if you're very high in one sphere but very low in another, you will find that thing that you're high in much easier to work with. You'll be able to do more with it. There are then times when you need to combine different spheres together in order to create a more complex effect. For now, though, I'm actually just going to cover the spheres themselves. And the other thing that's worth mentioning is that tradition mages, the normal mages, I guess, in the game, and technocracy mages, who are mages that work their magic through advanced technology, call these spheres different things. Excuse me. But in game terms, they are identical. There is no difference between them. So the first sphere, correspondence, called by the technocracy the data sphere. Correspondence or data revolves around the connections between things. A lot of correspondence magic has to do with travel or transport or distance. For example, teleporting would be a correspondence effect. You move from point A to point B without passing through the points in between. You are dealing with the connections between those places. You are shortening that distance. Or if you want to cause someone to take a long time to get to you, not the same as time, bear in mind, but if you actually want to make them travel further to get to you, you could use correspondence to mess with the space between you. Very interesting sphere. Very kind of allows you to do quite a bit because you are dealing with anything that is, like I said, the connections between things. It's also used by a lot of joint spells in order to enhance range or to have the effect happen over a longer distance or from further away, or even remotely. Another one, to use the D&D term, would be scrying. If you want to see what is going on somewhere else, that's correspondence. Sphere number 2, entropy, called the entropic state control, I believe, by the technocracy. What entropy is, I mean, obviously entropy is a thing, but the sphere of entropy deals with luck, fate, entropy allows things to either take their natural course and fall apart more rapidly, or sometimes prevents things from falling apart. The aforementioned, I want the building to fall on him, that would be an entropy effect, because what you're actually doing is you are affecting the stability of the building in such a way of it is eventually going to decay, it is eventually going to break down. What are the odds that it just happens to go ahead and break down while he's in it? And almost any effect that you could phrase as, what are the odds of, you can turn into an entropy effect. You know, the classic Dirty Harry, obviously not the classic of Do You Feel Lucky, but the counting bullets. You know, are you sure you have another shot in that gun? Am I sure I have another shot in this gun? That's entropy. If someone's holding a gun to you, and you just really want them to be out of bullets, that's an entropy effect. If they're standing in front of you, and you really need to be sure that your gun still has another bullet, even if you know you've actually already fired them all off, that's entropy. Now, if you're creating a bullet, that might need a little bit more than just entropy. I'll get into that in a minute. But that's entropy. The next one is forces, or force-based perceptions. Now, what forces is, in regards to Mage, is any kind of non-tangible energy. So, fire, electricity, microwaves, radio waves, radiation, wind, any kind of affecting force, get the word, that does not have a tangible form, falls under forces. You want to start a fire. You want to put out a fire. You want to throw a fireball. A lot of your traditional D&D conjuration magic, evocation magic. Your evocation magic, fireball, lightning bolt, that kind of thing, that's all going to be forces. Now, the next one we have is life, or to the technocracy, life science, biology. Life is magic that affects anything alive. Now, I have heard people try to oversimplify this as healing magic, which is not the case. Not at all. It can heal. In fact, life is exactly what you need if you want to heal someone. But it's not just healing. Life just as easily tears apart someone as it does put them together. As an addition, any spell that you want to affect anyone other than you, in a non-aggressive way, I guess, is basically going to require a life magic. For example, you want to teleport. That's correspondence. We already said that. You want to teleport someone else. That's correspondence and life. Because you are affecting a living being. Now, that's not always the case. Like I said, if you throw a fireball, you're not specifically affecting life. You are creating a force, and then what that force does once it's created does what it's doing. But with something like a teleport, you are specifically teleporting a person. And that requires life. Next, mind. Psychodynamics to the technocracy. Mind magic, very much in the same vein as life. Life affects anything alive. Mind affects a mind. That could be reading a mind. That could be speaking telepathically. That could be changing someone's mind. That could be making them remember something that didn't happen, or making them forget something that did. Anything which affects a thinking mind is mind magic. And again, we can mix that up. I want to telepathically speak to someone in the same room. Mind magic. I want to speak with someone telepathically across the world. Mind plus correspondence. So you start to build connections there. The next one, matter, or the material sciences to technocracy. Another, what they refer to as pattern spheres, one of the kind of very easily tangible ones. If you want to affect anything that is matter, i.e. solid objects which are not alive, you need the matter sphere. I don't want to teleport a person, I want to teleport that book. That's matter. Our initial, I want to throw the glass across the room without touching it. Well, you're going to need forces, which is what's going to move the glass, and matter, because you're affecting a glass, which is made out of matter. That's how you build your effects. You think about what you want to do, then you think about how you're doing it, and what you're doing it to. That's how they work. After matter, we get a little bit more out there, and we go to spirit, which obviously the technocracy is going to have a bit of an issue talking about spirits, because they believe in technology. To the technocracy, spirit is dimensional science, because obviously spirits, as they call them, are extra-dimensional creatures that pass through into our dimension from time to time. Dimensional sciences. Spirit lets you do all kinds of things with spirits. You want to talk to the dead? That's spirit. You want to use a D&D term, step into the ethereal realm? That's spirit. Again then, you want to bring someone else with you into the ethereal. That's spirit and life. Building. They all build on each other. And then we have time. Now, the temporal sciences is exactly what you think it is. Anything that speeds up, slows down, or changes time. Again, throwing out some D&D spells that are very common. Haste, slow, time stop. These are all time effects. That one I think is probably the most easy to understand the basics of what it is, and then also one of the hardest to implement, because it messes with the flow of gameplay. Time at its low levels helps out in combat, does a few, quick and easy things. It can also be tied with other spheres, though. So, for example, if you wanted to, using the previous example of scry on an area, okay, but I want to scry on this area, but I don't want to see what's happening now. I want to see what has already happened yesterday. That's correspondence and time. So you're affecting the where, the connection, that's correspondence, and you're affecting the when, that's time. You could also do interesting things with time and forces. Once more, to go to a D&D term, delayed blast fireball. It's a forces effect, it's a fireball. But it's not going to go off right away. It's going to wait and then go off. That's a time effect. The last one, and it's not actually the last one on the list, but I purposely left it for last, is Prime. Prime is probably the hardest of the spheres to understand, because Prime does almost nothing on its own. Prime enhances something else. So, Prime allows you to adjust certain things. It allows you to handle magical power. If you think of Prime as the raw magic sphere, if you want to draw magical energy from something or implement magical energy into anything, you need Prime. You also need Prime to create. Now, this is something I failed to touch on with the other spheres because I knew I was going to cover it here. Fireball. It's a very vulgar example. We'll get into what that means later. But if you want to create a fireball, you actually need forces and Prime. Why? Because you are creating fire from nothing. Now, if there's a building on fire and you want to move that flame onto a person, you don't need Prime for that. You can control those flames without Prime. But to create those flames, you need Prime. The same goes with, I want to create a key, or create a gun, or create a sword, whatever. Create a tank, whatever. And it is a bit more complicated than that, but you get my idea. You need Prime for that. You need that force of magic to create. Now, if you say, I want to take this car and turn it into 10 swords, or 50 swords, or whatever the ratio turns out to be, you can do that without Prime, because you are changing matter into matter. But if you want to create anything, that requires Prime. And the other thing that Prime is used for, which is getting a bit more into the rules, but if you want to store magical energy on your character. It's referred to as quintessence. If you want to be able to store quintessence, which, believe me, as a mage, you want to be able to store quintessence, you need Prime 1. It's a requirement. You cannot move quintessence from a node to you without Prime 1. There you go. All right, that's the 9 spheres. I'm at work, as you can see. The end for today. Maybe I'll be back this afternoon. Maybe I'll be back in the morning. Not really sure. Depends on how much I have to say. Anyway, have a great day. Like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will talk to you later on.